for reasons of his own, the latter had seen fit to change it. This was reasoning enough for soldiers, though the hurt received by Sergeant Dunham would have sufficiently explained the circumstance had an explanation been required. All this time Captain Sanglier was looking after his own breakfast with the resignation of a philosopher, the coolness of a veteran, the ingenuity and science of a Frenchman, and the veracity of an ostrich. This person had now been in the colony some 30 years, having left France in some such situation in his own army as Muirfield in the 55th. An iron constitution, perfect obduracy of feeling, a certain address well suited to manage savages, and an indomitable courage had early pointed him out to the commander-in-chief as a suitable agent to be employed in directing the military operations of his Indian allies. In this capacity, then, he had risen to the titular rank of captain, and with his promotion had acquired a portion of the habits and opinions of his associates with a facility and an adaptation of self which are thought in America to be peculiar to his countrymen. He had often led parties of the Iroquois in their predatory expeditions, and his conduct on such occasions exhibited the contradictory results of both alleviating the misery produced by this species of warfare, and of augmenting it by the broader views and greater resources of civilization. In other words, he planned enterprises that, in their importance and consequences, much exceeded the usual policy of the Indians, and then stepped in to lessen some of the evils of his own creating. In short, he was an adventurer whom circumstances had thrown into a situation where the callous qualities of men of his class might readily show themselves for good or for evil, and he was not of a character to baffle fortune by any ill-timed squeamishness on the score of early impressions, or to trifle with her liberality by unnecessarily provoking her frowns through wanton cruelty. Still, as his name was unavoidably connected with many of the excesses committed by his parties, he was generally considered in the American provinces a wretch who delighted in bloodshed, and who found his greatest happiness in tormenting the helpless and the innocent, and the name of Sanglier, which was a sobriquet of his own adopting, or of Flint-Heart, as he was usually termed on the borders, had got to be as terrible to the women and children of that part of the country as those of Butler and Brant became at a later day. The meeting between Pathfinder and Sanglier bore some resemblance to that celebrated interview between Wellington and Blücher which had been so often and graphically told. It took place at the fire, and the parties stood earnestly regarding each other for more than a minute without speaking. Each felt that in the other he saw a formidable foe, and each felt, while he ought to treat the other with the manly liberality due a warrior, that there was little in common between them in the way of character as well as of interests. One served for money and preferment, the other because his life had been cast in the wilderness, and the land of his birth needed his arm and experience. The desire of rising above his present situation never disturbed the tranquillity of Pathfinder, nor had he ever known an ambitious thought, as ambition usually betrays itself, until he became acquainted with Mabel. Since then, indeed, distrust of himself, reverence for her, and the wish to place her in a situation above that which he then filled, had caused him some uneasy moments, but the directness and simplicity of his character had early afforded the required relief, and he soon came to feel that the woman who would not hesitate to accept him for her husband would not scruple to share his fortunes, however humble. He respected Sanglier as a brave warrior, and he had far too much of that liberality which is the result of practical knowledge to believe half of what he had heard to his prejudice, for the most bigoted and illiberal on every subject are usually those who know nothing about it. But he could not approve of his selfishness, cold-blooded calculations, and least of all of the manner in which he forgot his white gifts, to adopt those that were purely red. On the other hand, Pathfinder was a riddle to Captain Sanglier. The latter could not comprehend the other's motives. He had often heard of his disinterestedness, justice, and truth, and in several instances they had led him into grave errors, on that principle by which a frank and open-mouthed diplomatist is said to keep his secrets better than one that is close-mouthed and wily. After the two heroes had gazed at each other in the manner mentioned, Monsieur Sanglier touched his cap, for the rudeness of a border life had not entirely destroyed the courtesy of manner he had acquired in youth, nor extinguished that appearance of bonhomie which seems inbred in a Frenchman. "Monsieur le Pathfinder," said he, with a very decided accent, though with a friendly smile, "un militaire honneur le courage et la loyauté. You speak Iroquois?" "Ay, I understand the language of the reptiles, and can get along with it if there's occasion," returned the literal and truth-telling guide. "But it's neither a tongue nor a tribe to my taste. Wherever you find the Mingo blood, in my opinion, Master Flinty Heart, you find a knave. Well, I've seen you often, though it was in battle, and I must say it was always in the van. You must know most of our bullets by sight?" "Never, sir. Your own une balle from your honourable hand be sartain death. You kill my best water on some island." That may be, though I dare say, if the truth was known, they would turn out to be great rascals. No offence to you, Master Flinty Heart, but you keep desperate evil company." "Yes, sir," returned the Frenchman, who, bent on saying that which was courteous himself, and comprehending with difficulty, was disposed to think he received a compliment. "You too good. But un brave, always comme ça." What that mean? Ha! What that jeune homme do? The hand and eye of Captain Sanglier directed the look of Pathfinder to the opposite side of the fire, where Jasper, just at that moment, had been rudely seized by two of the soldiers who were binding his arms under the direction of Muir. "What does that mean, indeed?" cried the guide, stepping forward and shoving the two subordinates away with a power of muscle that would not be denied. "Who has the heart to do this to Jasper Eau douce, and who has the boldness to do it before my eyes?" "It is by my orders, Pathfinder," answered the quartermaster, "and I command it on my own responsibility. You'll not take on yourself to dispute the legality of orders given by one who bears the king's commission to the king's soldiers." "I'd dispute the king's words if they came from the king's own mouth, did he say that Jasper desarves this. Has not the lad just saved all our scalps, taken us from defeat and given us victory? No, no, Lieutenant. If this is the first use that you make of your authority, I, for one, will not respect it." "This savors a little of insubordination," answered Muir, "but we can bear much from Pathfinder. It is true that Jasper has seemed to serve us in this affair, but we ought not to overlook past transactions. Did not Major Duncan himself denounce him to Sergeant Dunham before we left the post? Have we not seen sufficient with our own eyes to make sure of having been betrayed? And is it not natural, and almost necessary, to believe that this young man has been the traitor? Ah, Pathfinder, you'll no be making yourself a great statesman or a great captain if you put too much faith in appearances. Lord bless me, if I do not believe, could the truth be come at, as you often say yourself, Pathfinder, that hypocrisy is a more common vice than even envy, and that's the bane of human nature." Captain Sanglier shrugged his shoulders, then he looked earnestly from Jasper towards the quartermaster, and from the quartermaster towards Jasper. "I care not for your envy or your hypocrisy, or even for your human nature," returned Pathfinder. "Jasper Eau douce is my friend. Jasper Eau douce is a brave lad, and an honest lad, and a loyal lad, and no man of the 55th shall lay hands on him short of Lundy's own orders, while I'm in the way to prevent it. You may have authority over your soldiers, but you have none over Jasper and me, Master Muir." "Bon!" ejaculated Sanglier, the sound partaking equally of the energies of the throat and of the nose. "Will ye no hearken to reason, Pathfinder? Ye'll no be forgetting our suspicions and judgments, And here is another circumstance to augment and aggravate them all. You can see the